this video I want to show you how to do counting, so and permutations, things like that. So the n choose p kind of problems like we had back in chapter 2. So let me bring up Excel, and I'm going to go through some examples that are on page 177 and show you how to do them in Excel. So let me turn to that page in the book. Okay, sorry, this is chapter 4, not chapter 2. And the reason that I haven't typed in the problems yet is that I want to show you some little additional tips and tricks for working in Excel. The first one we're going to look at is example number 1 on the top of page 177. This is a pretty basic one. I'm not going to read through the problem. You can read through it, but I'll go right to the solution and show you how to implement it in Excel. So this one is just one where they want us to multiply 2 together 8 times. 2 times 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 2, or 2 to the 8th to get 256. So again, if we wanted to do a calculation, we have to start with equals, and we could go 2 times 2 times 2. Well, that seems like a lot. Let's see. Times, let me do, oops, that got us 8. There we go. Let me just actually show you what I did there for a second. Once I got out of the cell and hit 8, I could grab my mouse and arrow over and double click in, or I could highlight that cell and go up to the formula bar up here and get in there. But the way I like to do it, that I find the quickest, is to just highlight the cell and hit the F2 key, and that puts me right in the cell at the end of the text. And I didn't want to type times 2 that many times, so I'm going to copy it. I highlighted and copied the times 2. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So actually, let me label this. This is example 1. Okay. Give it a little title, kind of look there. Example 1. Okay. But I showed you exponents last time, so this should be a little bit easier to do. 2 caret 8. Right? All right. Not too bad so far. Let's do example 2. Oops. Okay. In this one, they want us to take 6 factorial. So we could do that out to get the logic down. 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And it's not so bad when it's only 6. That gives us the right number, 720. Or we could use a formula for this. Fact. Yep. So just type in the word equal, or type in the equals, and after that type fact. And then what number do we want to factorialize? 6? 720. So that was a new one for me, actually. I gotta admit, I've never used that one on a daily basis. And I don't recall ever having a homework problem that I had to do myself that had it. So let's see, that's examples 1 and 2. If we turn the page to 178, this will be example 3. Now this one has a more complex formula, so this is a good chance to show you how I would use Excel and take advantage of it to make to lay out the steps and make this a little bit easier to solve. And it's not that big of a formula, but if you had bigger formulas, it's really nice to lay out the steps. But they want us to calculate the number of different sequences or arrangements that we can have where we select 2 of these 20 horses available in a certain show. So we'll just let's write out the equation just to orient ourselves first, and we'll give it a little NPR. That's kind of what that looks like. And we could write the equation first just to remind us what we're doing. We're doing n factorial divided by, and I like to put in the parentheses. I like to put in a little more space sometimes there just so things don't get jumbled up. N minus r in parentheses factorial. So remember, with order of operations, this is going to be n minus r, that whatever the result of that subtraction is factorialized, and then that's the denominator, and n factorial is the numerator. So we could, I'll jump to the end here and say, you know, we could do it like this, where we just solved it all right out in one formula. We know that n is 20. Oops. To do fact 20 over fact 20 minus 2. That gives us the right answer. That one isn't too bad. But you can already see that it starts to look a little bit busy, and it's kind of abstract. If we looked back at this next week or to review for the final or for a quiz, we might not remember what exactly was going on there. So I would advise you to actually lay out all the steps, even for simple problems like this, at least for the first few times you're doing them. So we know that what we want to calculate is this thing up here, and maybe we can highlight it or something to remind us that that's not that's the formula we're calculating. That's not a solution, or that's not the actual calculation. That's the formula. So 380 is our answer. We did it that way. Let's try it a different way. Let's lay out what we need for the problem. We know what factorial is. That's not what we in the end we need n factorial. So let's give that its own line. So we need to find n factorial, and we also need to find n. We're given n, and we're given r, and we need to find n minus r factorial. So really break it down into its own steps. So that's everything that's on the right side of the equation. There's a dividing sign, but that's not a big deal. We know how to deal with that. So n factorial, well, if I know n, I can know n factorial. So we know that n is 20 horses. And so now I could do equals fact 20, but let's say that 20 might change, or just in case I typed in 20 wrong, if I type it in again, that gives me another chance to make a typo. And then sometimes, actually what I find with myself, if I make mistakes, if I type it in and I do fact 20, well, that's fine, I did it right, but let's say I accidentally typed in fact 21. Well, now that's kind of hard to tell that I made that mistake, right? All I see is the final number. I don't see the 20 unless I look up here. So I actually like to keep all the parts that go into it at the, okay, it's not going to let me just get out of there, so I'll just get out for now. I like to keep everything like where I can see it, so I know that n goes into n factorial, and so instead of typing fact 20, I'm going to refer to the cell that has the number 20 in it. So fact B for the column that we're in, and 14 for the row. So if you want to change what that number looks like, just right-click on that cell, click on Format Cells here, and you can tell by default it's a general number. If we want it to be sort of what we think of as a real number without any changes to it, a number. You could also make it a currency, or if you're dealing with dates, you can make it a date, which doesn't make sense for this one, time, percentage, things like that. But we're going to call it a number for now, and we're going to get rid of the 2 decimal places because we don't really need those for this problem. And we're also going to put in the 1,000 comma separator to make it a little bit more interpretable. And whenever you see those 3 pound signs, it just means that there's text that needs to drag out the column, the width of the column, to display the text that's in the field. Okay, so we've got our n factorial. It's a big number, and in your regular calculator that might not all display on the screen, and you might not want to deal with scientific notation, so this is another way to deal with it. Okay, so the second thing we know that we're given from the problem is r, or the number that we're choosing out of these 20 horses, and that's 2. And for the formula we don't need r factorial, but we need n minus r factorial. So I'm going to make this a formula itself. We know that n is 20, and we could just type that in, or do B14. It highlights that cell for us, so we know what we're doing. N minus B15. That's r. Oops. And we can't just do this, right? That would be kind of neat, but we need to go back and do the fact. Oops. Fact. And let's fix that cell again. Now if you want to fix all the cells at one time in a column, for example, instead of doing them one by one, you could highlight this whole column and right-click and do format cells. But I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so I think we have all the pieces we need. We've got n factorial, we've got n minus r factorial. Now let's put it all together in our solution. N factorial, oops, which is in cell B13, divided by n minus r factorial, which is in cell B16, and that gives us 380. Now go through the rest of the examples here on the next couple of pages, just moving a little bit more quickly, since you know what I'm doing, but just to show you some repetition. Example 4, and we're told that we need to calculate n factorial over I guess n factorial, or n1. We don't really have a notation for that, but it would be like n sub 1 factorial times n sub 2 factorial times all the way through, oops, n sub k factorial. For this one, we know that n is 10, and there's only two things in the denominator, the n1 and sub 1 and sub 2. The first one is 2, and the second one is 3. So that's what we're given for the problem. Put all that out there first, and then to do the formula.